Hi, I'm John Pop, and I'm a Pluralsight author.
Hi, I'm Sam Martioli. I'm a solutions engineer.
Cool. We're today going to look at some code that Sam's written. We both know Node, but he's come up with a really cool way to kind of build a Node application with Express and Redis and Mongo, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to get some feedback from each other and figure out kind of, is this the right way to build these things?
Yeah, I'm going to show you basically how to use a basic server and then pull in Express and use the request module to make calls to backend services, kind of aggregate that data and send it back down to your web application.
So when we're done, we're going to have an app that will hit the server, do like puts and gets and things like that too,
yeah.
And then also handle talking to other servers or databases or caches.
Yep.
Cool.
Exactly.
Nice.
All right, let's get started.
Teach me.
Okay, so John, I've created this folder here, play by play, so I'm in my terminal, and I'm going to start out by using NPM. So NPM comes along with Node, and it's the Node package manager, and it basically allows me to init a project. This is my starting point, this is my launch point. It's going to create a manifest file from the terminal. So I'm going to do npm init with the -y flag, which basically takes all the default answers. And it's going to create this JSON file for me. So if I look in here in my text editor, I've got this package JSON was just created, and it gives me a name and a version, a description, and I can go through and edit all this stuff, but for now we're just going to take the default values.
Okay.
So now I'm going to create an index file. So it's kind of the default when you create modules in Node to call your entry point index. I don't know if it kind of carries over from HTML, index.html, because JavaScript is a web language. But
Probably, yeah.
So I'm going to do touch index.js.
And touch on a Mac is?
That's create file.
Okay.
Mix a file.
So I could use an editor too.
You can use an editor. So I'm just going to create that file. I spend a lot of time in the terminal, so it's usually easier for me. Yeah, let's reload it. So in here, we're going to start out, and we're going to create a variable called HTTP, and we're going to use the require syntax.
And that's ES5, right?
ES5, correct.
Because ES6 you could use import.
Import. And we're going to include the HTTP module.
And we're requiring require?
We're requiring HTTP.
Oh, okay. I thought we were being very sure we're requiring it.
Make sure we require before we require it.
Gotcha.
All right. So I'm requiring HTTP, which is a Node built-in module. And if you go to the nodejs.org website, you can click on through to the documentation, and it has really, really good documentation. We're on 4.2.2 right now. So
using how do you actually check that? Do you just do like node-v? Does that work?
Yeah, I use, well, node-version. I don't know if node-v works. Yeah, node-v
cool.
works too.
All right. So 4.2.2, and 4 is the stable version right now, right?
Correct. So Node came out, and it was out for a while, and point 10 was the big popular version. At point 12, a lot of people were moving towards, but no one kind of moved forward. And this is one of the great things about open source. So it's an open source project, and a lot of people at the head of Node said, hey, we don't like the direction this is going, and so they forked, and they went to IO.js. And there were some good and bad things about it, but ultimately what ended up happening was they did some really good work. They brought everything up to date with Google V8 dependencies, because Node is built on top of Google V8. And once they did that, there was some dialogue back and forth between Node and IO, and they ended up merging. So that's what...
So Node split off with IO.js, but they ended up getting along and reconciling.
Yeah,
so the marriage got back together.
They got back together.
Gotcha.
Trial separation, and it was successful. So that's what Node 4 is. And so
now we've got ES6 and all that kind of fun stuff in here too.
Yeah, it's great. And so with Node 4, you know that you're going to be long-term support. I think it's 18 months, 2 years, 3. I have to look it up.
Long-term.
There's long-term support. And then 5 is actually out right now, and that is kind of their bleeding edge. So I'm sticking on 4 for now, but if you want to play with the new features, you can.
So they have an interesting versioning strategy. It's a little different than the others.
Yep.
Okay.
Even releases will be long-term support.
Cool. So HTTP me.
HTTP. So where did we leave off? I was going here. Let's close that. And I've got this code here. I'm just going to copy and paste.
So you've got a solution already kind of built out, but you're going to show me kind of step by step how this works?
I'm going to walk through the process.
Okay.
I've already built this out and built a lot of things with Node. I've been using Node on my day-to-day for a couple years now. So I'm pretty versed in it. This is the best way to go, just kind of to start off right here to show you the HTTP server. So we just created this module, right? Now we just created this variable, which is HTTP, and we get a bunch of functions from the built-in module, and the first one is create server, apropos. This takes a callback function, and this callback function has a request and a response object. This function is what gets executed every time someone comes into our web page.
So I could take the request, investigate that, and maybe look at certain properties, and then add to the response, and then just end it when I'm ready to end it.
Exactly.
Okay.
You can look at the headers, look at the body that comes across, who's the sender, all that stuff.
Gotcha.
So when I'm in this function, I'm going to first write out a header. So I'm going to send a status of 200, and I'm going to send content type text plain, and then I'm going to response end. So this is going to send the text hello world down the pipe to the server that made the request, or to the client that made the request, and it's going to end the response. And then this callback function gets instantiated and run every time someone hits the server, and then I tell it to listen on port 3000 on my local host.
Now, what we've done so far, if I'm reading this right, is you're creating a server that no matter what I send to you, you're always going to send the same response.
Exactly.
Right, which isn't where we're going to end up, but that's where we're starting.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then I'm just giving a simple log to say that we're running. So let me save this out.
And requiring is a way to basically, like if you're in do.NET, to use something, like to pull in a DLL or in Java, a jar file, for example.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly. Or pound import if you're in C.
What's it in COBOL?
Never written any COBOL.
Wish I could say that. Cool.
So it works. So we've got here, if I look at my network, I can, if I use Chrome a lot, so I just bring up the developer tools, Command Option J, and I'm going to look at my local host call. And so I've got my headers here. It shows what I sent across and what I got back. And if I look here.
So we should see the content type of text plain somewhere.
Right here.
Oh, right there. Great.
Yeah. So now, if I wanted to send back like HTML, I could change that to text HTML, or I could send.
What about JSON?
JSON, I can do all of that. But I don't want to be writing headers, and I don't want to be, making all these low-level calls. So I want something to kind of take care of that. I want a framework, right?
Yeah, I can imagine we could write our own to do this, but there's got to be several of them out there that we've played with that. Yeah. Which one do you like?
So the main one right now is Express. Everyone writes a lot of applications in Express. It handles front end and back end, so it can do templating and send JADE files, which translates into HTML or pure HTML. So you can use it for your front and your back end. I tend to use it just for my API because a lot of my front end is just static stuff because I use Angular.
Right. So if we use Angular, we just serve up HTML. But if we want to use it for like, go get my list of customers, we can use Express to do a request.
Exactly. So I'm going to go in here, and we're going to switch this out, and we're going to use the Express module. So I'm going to say Express var Express equals require Express, but we're going to have a problem. So if I go here and I say node, I wonder if that was the issue before I didn't kill it. It says can't find module Express. Well, that's because we didn't install it.
Right.
Right. So we need to have the Express module because it's not one of the internal components. So we use NPM to do that, and this is one of the greatest parts about Node.
So let's go out to NPM for a second, because I want to take a moment just to understand this.
Sure.
We're up on NPM, looking at the packages, and I'll just go for Express real quick. Yeah. And it shows me here, hey, it's written by Doug Wilson. I didn't know that actually. And it kind of gives you examples and all this. But NPM, and we can see this is pretty popular, right? 3.7 million downloads in the last month. That's pretty good, I guess, right?
Not bad.
You did that in a weekend? So it's pretty popular using that. But the idea behind NPM is it's like a store. It's a free marketplace for packages. Yep. How do you decide when you're in NPM if the package you're going to use is something worth using?
So trial and error. I mean, if you go to the main page of NPM, you can see how many people are using it. That's kind of what a lot of people use to gauge how well a package is being developed and adopted by the community. Once you're in the community, you kind of just know. I mean, Express is kind of the bare bones basic web server. PM2 you've got up here. That's for managing your processes when you're trying to deploy. So whenever the node process
one of my
dies,
favorites, Gulp, is down here.
Gulp is great. Yep. Bower, which is kind of going the way of the Dodo. More people, that's the front end.
Right, more people are using NPM over Bower these days.
Right, because you can use it for both.
For both, why not?
Yeah, and
so when we're looking at these, I mean, obviously Express is very popular, but if you're looking at a package that's got 3 downloads in the last month, it's probably one you want to be more weary of.
You want to stay away from that.
Okay.
And the other good thing too is you want to make sure that it's sponsored by somebody, or not necessarily sponsored by somebody, but there's a big following. So if you see
active.
It's active. If you see like 20 packages for the same thing, you want to look and see who's pulled the most or started the most.
Okay.
Alrighty.
That's kind of like GitHub. Just make sure it's actually being used.
Exactly right. Okay.
So we're going to use NPM to get Express. Did you do that yet?
No, I did not. So in here, we're going to do npm install, and I use the -save option, and I'll explain what that means. So it's going to install this into this folder called Node Modules. So now, if I go here and I look inside Node Modules, I've got this Express folder, and it's got its lib, and it has its own dependencies, Node Modules, and it has its index.js, which is its entry point, and it's just saying to require libexpress. If I go in my package JSON, I now see that I've added here my dependencies as Express 4.13.3. So what I usually do at this point in the project is I'm going to vi a .gitignore.
And what is VI?
VI is just an editor. It's a terminal editor. You know what VI is.
I know, yes, but VI, that's the one where you can't figure out how to actually use it.
Exactly.
Yes.
So you could touch the file or create a file, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to put node
I'm going to be
modules.
using VS Code.
All right. Fair enough. So I'm going to create a node modules. So now, whenever I commit this, it's going to commit all my files, but it's not going to commit the modules. So the paradigm
Right.
is when you download a new project out of Git, you're not going to get all the dependencies. You just get the bare bones code, and then the package JSON defines what you're going to install inside your node modules.
So if I wanted to deploy this later, I don't want to bring my node modules into source control because it's huge
Yeah.
and it's a specific version.
Correct.
With package JSON will be used by some CI server to say, hey, run through my packages, get Express version, whatever we've got there, and the caret means, hey, anything that's 4 dot anything, right?
Yeah.
So that way, I'm not, if I have like 20 references or dependencies that are like 100 meg, I don't have to worry about it.
Yep. I tend to do
Okay.
this. I don't know if it's good advice or bad advice.
Exact
but I like
versions?
to do absolute versions.
Well, then you know it works.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That your dependencies might not necessarily be frozen. So if I go install this,
Yep.
your dependencies. So there's a program called Shrink Wrap that can help you do that with CI/CD. But for the most part, I haven't had.
My
any
personal
issues.
favorite is actually the tilde. So if we put a tilde there, what that means is only the last version, which are patches,
Yep.
which you should be safe.
Should be
not
safe.
always.
Yeah, not always.
But most of the time, you should be safe with Semver. If we go to 4.13.4,
Yeah.
that's like, ooh, somebody had a typo
So
somewhere.
you know what Semver is? It's you have your major version, which is breaking changes in the API. Your dot version, which is changes but no, it's backwards compatible.
Backwards compatible,
No
additive,
API changes.
basically.
Yeah. And then the third version is bug fixes.
Which is usually what I do when I have a bad README.
Yeah. You'll bump the whole version?
Bump the whole bottom version, yeah.
So what do you get to, like 99, 100?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
because I can't type.
I actually have a shortcut in my terminal called GR, which just does a git, add, commit, and submit with README.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm in the same boat. Okay, so now we have Express installed and we have our index. So we have to do something with Express. So there's a syntax here, and I'm going to cheat because I've already typed some of this out. And I'm going to first create an app, and I'm going to execute the Express function. So this require Express returns a function,
It gets the module.
gets the module.
Now you got to create it.
Yep. Now I execute this, so I could do some initialization by passing parameters in here, and that's kind of what you do when you use the modules. In this case, I don't have to pass anything; I just get a basic app.
Sure.
And now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use this syntax. I'm going to say app.get. So what this is saying is every time I have a GET request on slash, I'm going to execute this function. So before, HTTP was anytime I got a request or response, just send back whatever was there. And this makes it easy, so I don't have to look at what the actual URL path was, what the resource they're looking for at the domain. I can just say app.get on slash return hello world.
Will that only get it if it's slash? What if it's slash Sam?
No.
Okay, so it's
gets it
only
on
getting
slash.
specific. Unlike the other one, we got everything.
Exactly. And then I create a server at the bottom, and I just say app.listen. So again, very similar to what I was doing with HTML, but this is just the framework that makes it a lot nicer and a lot easier. So again, I'm listening on port 3000, and then in this callback function, once I know that server's up and running, I say, but my server is running. So if I save this and I go back to the terminal,
It looks a little tighter than the HTTP code was.
It is,
So
it
it's
is.
basically sugar code on top of HTTP.
Exactly. So if I go here and I say node index.js, I'm running on port 3000, and I go and refresh, I have hello world. You'll notice now that this changed a little bit from the last one. If you
the
pick
font
that
looked
up,
different.
The font changed. So if I look at my content type, I'm text HTML.
No, we didn't specify the content type this time. So is that like the default?
Well, yes, that is the default.
Okay.
Correct. Well, response.send says that. So I can set that based on options inside my response, or you led me into the next part, which is I can send JSON back. So if I go here and I do response.json and I refresh, oh, wait a minute, I didn't get JSON. That's planned. I want to show you this.
We changed our code, but
We
the
changed
server's
our
still
code,
running.
but the server's still running.
Gotcha. So
Right.
how can we make it so it automatically just gets the new code?
I'm glad you asked. So I like to use a program called NodeMon. So
Is that the Jamaican node version?
did it happen?
Is that the Jamaican node?
Yeah, NodeMon. So NodeMon is basically a node monitor. So it runs Node and it runs a watch task inside your folder, not inside your Node modules, but any resource file, any JS file that you have inside your project. It watches. If it changes on the file system, restarts your server for you.
Okay.
The way we get this is you do an npm install -G NodeMon. So I've already got it installed, so I'm not going to run that.
So that means globally, right?
Globally.
So it means any program I've got can use this.
Yeah, and it puts it in your path so that whenever you're in your terminal, you can actually use, there's usually going to be a terminal facet to a...
Difference of that is going to be, we had Express, which we didn't do -G, and this one we do -G. So -G is for I'm going to use it everywhere.
Yeah.
It's not going to be my package.
Correct.
But then it's just to run it, where Express is going to be, this code relies on Express.
Yeah. Should I show you? Should I do it? That doesn't end up in the... Let me do it.
Sure.
You believe me? All right, I'll just do it. I don't think it's going to take too long, but now that could be the kiss of death. See how good our internet connection is. So while that's installing NodeMon, we're going to go and look up here, and we see inside our Node modules we have Express. This is going to do, so NodeMon has to do some compilation. So this actually is a good talking point. Most of the stuff is JavaScript. When you install an NPM package, it's JavaScript, but some stuff is platform specific. So NodeMon is platform specific because it does some stuff with the file system, and it has actually compiled code. So when you run an NPM install, it's going to install basically the Mac. It's going to compile the Mac version on my machine. If I did it on Windows, it would do the Windows
So what you're saying is that all these things we're doing work on Mac or Windows, either or Linux.
Or Linux.
It's just that when you install some of these things, they detect what OS you are, so they can operate differently.
Correct.
Okay.
So now, but if I take these Node modules and I didn't have this git ignore, and I copied this package up to a Linux server, it would not run, well, assuming that I had some installed packages that were platform specific, unless it was NPM installed on that platform.
That's why we don't put the binaries
Another
up there.
reason. Yep, another reason. So now I've got NodeMon. So I'm going to run NodeMon index.js. And so if I go up here, remember we just made the change.
Yep, it even tells us it's watching now. Yep.
And so now we've got JSON. I've got this really cool plugin called JSON inside Chrome.
So change world to hi, just to show that it's changed, and then go over here and refresh.
Yep.
Cool. So it picked it up, NodeMon said, hey, I saw your change.
Yep.
And we can get you back. Cool.
All right.
I noticed your browser is actually showing like a pretty print of JSON. You got a plugin that does that?
Yes, that's...
What is that?
JSON, I think it's JSON View.
Okay.
JSON View on Chrome. It's a really good plugin.
Right, because by default the browser doesn't do that, right?
Yeah, you're just going to get like a plugin. Yeah,
Cool.
This is a JSON View. Very strongly recommend it.